Essentially, the Chinese Ministry of State Security or the People's Liberation Army have been able to manipulate Pentagon software. This was, and the thing about this is that Microsoft had been warned several times by its own employees and by its consultants, as ProPublica reports, and Microsoft recklessly disregarded these warnings.
As China tightens its grip on the Indo-Pacific and South Korea stands caught between alliance and intimidation, East Asia teeters on the brink of a dangerous shift. So, what do recent moves by China's communist regime mean for you? Gordon Chang is author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, and he joins us now. Gordon, always great to see you. Hey, we're getting reports of maybe a purge happening in recent weeks inside of China's military, top military officials being demoted, some even disappearing. What exactly is going on there in the country that may be America's #1 strategic adversary?
I think Xi Jinping is lost control or losing control of the People's Liberation Army. We have seen over the last several months his supporters and loyalists being purged. So, for instance, General He Weidong, who was the #2 uniformed officer and Xi Jinping's hatchet man in the military, he has not been seen in public since March 11th. Now, there are reports that he was suicided in May at the 301 hospital in Beijing. That's the PLA's main hospital. We don't know if that's true or not, but the point is that General He has been sidelined and he's not being able to help Xi in the military. Also, a number of other Xi loyalists have disappeared. And clearly, what's going on is not Xi Jinping firing them, as many people say, but I believe it's Xi Jinping's adversaries who are getting rid of them. And the reason that we can see that is because PLA Daily, which is the main propaganda organ of the Chinese military, has been running articles praising collective leadership, which is a direct slap on Xi Jinping, which means those articles could not be appearing if Xi were in control of the military, which means that his loyalists being sacked, they must be being sacked by his adversaries.
Well, this has massive global implications, Gordon, including right here in the United States. So Xi Jinping may not be long for the premiership, is what you're saying. He may be on the road to getting pushed out the door. If that happens, #1, why the discontent with Xi among other Communist Party officials? And #2, if he is shown the door, what comes next?
I think the reason for his problems in the military is because he just purged too many people, and that created too much resentment. And so it was building up for quite some time. But among civilian officials, there's also evidence that Xi is being sidelined, though the evidence and the corroboration is not as clear as it is in the military. But the one thing about the civilian sector is that we know why he's in trouble there. And that is because by taking an unprecedented third term, he was denying a whole generation of Chinese leaders promotions, which is a real indication that his grab for permanent power is being resisted. What comes after, we just don't know. And this is one of the most fascinating and important questions anyone could ask. But unfortunately, right now, it is very difficult to see what's occurring.
Yeah. Do you see the radical, not that Xi Jinping is some kind of moderate, it is a communist regime, but the most hardline radical elements, do you see them perhaps pushing for a stronger line with Donald Trump back in office? Look, he himself has taken a strong line against China. Are there elements, Gordon, in the leadership in Beijing that say, look, we need to be strong in the face of the United States and be more hardline?
I think that will be the effect, Eric. And the reason is that Xi Jinping has configured the Chinese political system so that only the most hostile answers are considered acceptable. And that means it's going to be very difficult for the regime to compromise. The other thing, of course, is when the situation is fluid, compromise becomes a dangerous position. Now, one other counterbalancing factor is that Xi Jinping has gotten himself into trouble by taking these hardline positions. And so one could argue that maybe the moderates take over for at least a moment in time. I just don't know. The regime, of course, is so opaque right now that it's very hard to figure out how this is going to go.
Gordon, you said it. It is a fluid situation. About 30 seconds left before the break, then we will bring you right back. China's relationship right now with Russia, growing, still strong, something we need to be alarmed about?
Growing stronger, as Wang Yi, the foreign minister, told the EU foreign policy chief on July 2nd, when he told her that China cannot afford to see Russia lose in Ukraine. So China's doubling down on Vladimir Putin.
You can follow Gordon on X and across social media. Gordon, we've got a scandal brewing right now that you've been following very closely at the Pentagon. Look, Microsoft using Chinese engineers to work on Pentagon systems. Tell us more about this and why it's such a problem.
ProPublica earlier this week broke the story. What happened is that at the end of the Obama administration, but continuing to today, Microsoft has been maintaining Pentagon systems, and they've been doing it with engineers in China. Now, these engineers, they're supervised by what are called digital escorts that Microsoft has employed in the States. But these digital escorts are just not able to keep up with the work that the Chinese do. And in many cases, they're not technically qualified. So essentially, the Chinese Ministry of State Security or the People's Liberation Army have been able to manipulate Pentagon software. This was, and the thing about this is that Microsoft had been warned several times by its own employees and by its consultants, as ProPublica reports, and Microsoft recklessly disregarded these warnings. Now, on the other side of the story, you have a Pentagon which was oblivious. So there's gross negligence on the part of the Defense Department. But put together, it means that China has been able to maintain these systems and with almost no oversight from Microsoft. So this is indefensible. And I hope that Secretary Hegseth not only imposes the biggest fine in American history on Microsoft, but also fires employees inside the Pentagon for their failure to administer this program properly.
Gordon, this is insane. It's literally the enemy within at the Pentagon of all places, but you've been following this. Also, Gordon, you've been covering the land grabs by the Chinese Communist Party and elements connected to it right here in the United States, in the heartland, farmland being bought up by communist China. What's the latest on that? People are now, I think, just becoming aware of that. You've been talking about it for a while. What's the latest on that?
Well, the latest is what happened in June, where 3 Chinese nationals were charged with trying to smuggle biological agents into the United States. The first 2 cases were a fungus that would hit American crops and livestock, also damaging to humans. And I think what's happening here, Eric, is that China was planning to plant invasive species on our land. This is something that's been going on for at least a half decade. In 2020, Americans in all 50 states received seeds from China unsolicited. And this program on the part of China continued through this year, where Temu, the online retailer, was caught smuggling seeds and an unidentified liquid to parties in the United States, again, unsolicited. So you have what it looks like a coordinated attack on American agriculture and American livestock.
Let's shift gears a bit. South Korea, you've covered this a bunch as well, Gordon. Look, some serious internal problems in South Korea over the past year or so, but a strategic and crucial U.S. ally. What's the latest in South Korea, and how are they threatened by China in their backyard?
Well, June 3, there was a snap presidential election. The leftist, Lee Jae-myung, won. There's evidence of election fraud. But Yi taking office is now bringing in a lot of hardcore anti-American personnel and officers. And we're seeing very pro-North Korea orientation of the new administration. Half of South Korea's public is very much against this. They're rallying on the streets. So this is not over yet. But if President Yi gets his way, he will terminate the alliance with the United States, kick our troops off of South Korean soil, and move firmly into China's and North Korea's camps. I hope that the democratic institutions prevent him from doing that. And we have survived leftist presidents in South Korea before, but Yi is much more determined and much more ruthless than previous leftist presidents.
Do you have greater confidence now we have the Trump administration in control? Do you have greater confidence that there will be a stronger American posture towards China, towards radical leftism in South Korea and all the rest in that very, very crucial region?
I have confidence, but also we got to remember that the Trump administration is being overwhelmed by problems, not just by China, but by China's friends. So, for instance, Russia and Iran. So we are under assault. And I'm glad that President Trump was elected. And we all wish him well, because whether, Americans voted for him or not, we've only got one commander in chief, and we are at a critical moment in time.
Yeah. Well said, Gordon. These are the times. Great breakdown, my friend, as always. Folks, the book is called Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. It is a must-read. Gordon Chang, always great to see you. Keep up the great work, Gordon.
Stakelbeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.